How you choose to approach that time is totally 100% up to you. But you have to make the decision that if you are complaining or stating that you're out of time and you don't have time, then you have to make the decision to really, really take stock of what you're doing presently and really, really ask yourself if what you're doing or not doing is worth the time that you're not putting into it. Hi there, and welcome to another episode of the Stethoscopes to Swaddles podcast. This week, we are going to be beginning a series called the Work Motherhood Balance series, in which I'm going to be teaching you strategies where you can learn how to manage your motherhood by creating balance and also carving out time for yourself and managing your time wisely. So before we get started, I'd like you to reflect on whether you are a person that uses a to-do list and how this usually looks like for you. If you are consistently finding yourself at the end of the week with uncompleted tasks at the end of the week on your to-do list and then building on another list for the following week and it just seems like a hamster wheel, well, this is the episode for you. Today, I'm going to teach you how to create 1 free hour a week by using a method called time blocking and calendaring, and also getting rid of things that you don't need to be doing by using the Eisenhower Matrix. So let's get started. Hi there. My name is Shira Bergbauer, and I'm passionate about supporting working moms. I'm a wife, mom, and certified registered nurse anesthetist. I teach you the tried and true secrets to overcoming mom guilt, creating work-life balance, and carving out time for self-care, and leading you to live your best mama life. Relationships, health, self-care, fashion, travel, growth, all are topics we discuss here. Nothing is off limits. Think of this as your one-stop shop for happy hour with a mama friend mixed with life school. Pull up a seat, make sure you're cozy, and get ready to be empowered, educated, and challenged while you learn. Welcome to the Stethoscopes to Swaddles podcast. I'm going to start you with a quote by George Anders, and the quote says, "There is an art to clearing away the clutter and focusing on what matters most. It is simple and is transferable. It just requires the courage to take a different approach." So recently, I read the book called The One Thing by Gary Keller, and if you haven't read this book, I highly, highly recommend it. Basically, what Gary Keller talks about is the idea that instead of trying to focus on everything and never getting anything done, you could focus on the one thing. And so he created this question, which you ask yourself every day as you sit down and look at the things that you need to do. And the question is, what is the one thing I can do such by doing it, everything else will be easier or unnecessary? So you can change this into a focusing question as a small focus question, like for the right now. Basically, what you would ask yourself is, what is the one thing right now? Before we get started on the time management strategies that I'm going to teach you, I'd like you to come up with a focusing question for yourself and start each day by asking yourself, what is the one thing I can do today for whatever it is that you want, fill in the blank, such that by doing it, everything else will be easier or even unnecessary. And when you do this, your direction will become clear and your work will be more productive and your personal life more rewarding. The first thing I'm going to talk about is a mindset shift that needs to happen in order for you to break up with your to-do list and start using this productivity method. A quote by Will Rogers, and it says, "Even if you're on the right track, you'll get run over if you just sit there." Living with purpose, living by priority, and living for productivity is super important. The first thing I'm going to talk about is the 4 thieves of productivity. And the first one is the inability to say no. Now, most of us women have this inherent need to answer to every call and requests that comes our way by saying yes. What I'd like to share with you is a quote by Seth Godin, who is a master marketing guy. And he says that you can say no with respect, you can say no promptly, and you can say no with a lead to someone who might say yes. But just saying yes because you can't bear the short-term pain of saying no is not going to help you do the work. So as you get started on prioritizing your time and figuring out what works best for you, one of the things I'd like you to think about is how to show up in a way that you can share your time with your family and your work and be really intentional about that. That is so, so important. The second thief of productivity is the fear of chaos. And I'm guilty of this because as you sit down and you're trying to plan out your day and you're trying to map out your week and everything looks fabulous, one of the things that people fail to do is asking themselves whether the pretty organized desk is a reflection of the work that they have done for the day. So a case in point, yesterday I was working on creating a setup, a setting for recording some videos, and my husband walked into my office and he was just like shocked and horrified. And he was like, oh my gosh, it's so chaotic in here. And then Hurricane Isabella came through and moved a few of the stuff around. And I had to reflect what that chaos represented. The chaos represented that I had been putting in work and I had been actually showing up for my business and for myself. It didn't have to be pretty because I knew what I was doing and I was going to be organized at the end of the day. The third thing that's a thief of productivity is poor health habits. Not supporting your sleep and rest, not eating healthy, not prioritizing movement in your life, and therefore not really showing up for yourself. Therefore, it makes it difficult for you to be productive because you're not even at your best self. The fourth one is an environment that doesn't support your goals, be it family, be it just like the structure that you have in your household that doesn't allow for you to really be intentional with your time. Those can be thieves of productivity that really get in the way of you planning your time and doing what you need to be doing at a given time, because you do need the support, but you also need to create an environment that allows you to support your goals. We're going to get started. I'm going to tell you how to create your time management plan. The first thing that I'd like you to do is on your calendar, I'd like you to schedule an hour, like just block out an hour, commit to that hour. And the first time you do it, it's going to be really, really awkward. You're going to feel like you're going to be in a weird zone. Just commit to it and trust the process. So I want you to clear all distractions, turn off your phone. If you need to put it on airplane mode, do that. But if you need to like use your calendar on your phone, you can still put it on airplane mode and just, be able to scroll through the calendar. Eliminate all distractions. So if it means like, sitting in a room, this might have to be done when the kids go to bed and everything is done and you can carve out an hour of your time. But I promise you it's worth it. It's so worth it. What you're going to do is once you've eliminated all your distractions, you're going to take a blank piece of paper and you're literally going to dump out everything in your brain. Everything that like you feel like needs to be done, you're just going to dump it all out. Like for example, if one of the things that you want to do is plan a birthday party for your kid, you're going to like literally write down all the things that need to be done to make the birthday party a success. If there's laundry that needs to be done and like clothes that need to be bought or whatever needs to be done, like you're literally going to write everything down. And it sounds rudimentary, but it's so worth it because writing and repetitive writing actually creates space for you to be able to do what needs to be done. The second thing, once you have dumped out everything, is that you are going to take your calendar and you're going to block your time off. So that's the first priority. You're going to block off what your rest time is going to be for the week. You're going to just like put that on your calendar. Don't just say, oh, I'm going to rest on Saturday afternoon. Like I want you to sit down and put it on your calendar. Saturday from 2 to 3 p.m. is mommy time and I'm going to rest. Trust me, the process like seems crazy, but it's worth it. Just stay with me. The next thing you're going to do is something I'm going to introduce you to is called the Eisenhower Matrix. So President Dwight Eisenhower was the 34th president of the United States from 1953 until 1961. Before he became president, he served as a general in the U.S. Army and as the Allied Forces Supreme Commander during World War II. He also became NATO's first Supreme Commander. He had an incredible ability to sustain his productivity, not just for weeks or months, but for decades. And for that reason, his methods for time management, task management, and productivity have been studied by so many people. His most famous strategy is known as the Eisenhower Matrix or the Eisenhower box. And it's literally a simple decision-making tool that anybody can use. So what you do is, with all these things that you put down on your brain dump, you're going to create the Eisenhower Matrix. And it's going to look like this. You're just going to draw a straight line horizontally and a straight line vertically. So you're going to create a square, an open square. On the left upper quadrant, you're going to write important and urgent. On the right upper quadrant, you are going to write down important but not urgent. On the left lower quadrant, you're going to write down urgent but not important. And on the right lower quadrant, you're going to put neither urgent nor important. Then you're going to take everything on your list that you brain dump and you're going to categorize this in whatever box. So, for example, important and urgent is, you need to go to the dentist. And important but not urgent is you need to schedule your dry cleaning pickup. That's just an example. So what you're going to do is you're going to put everything in the Eisenhower Matrix, categorize what needs to be done, what's important, what's not important, because the top of the matrix is everything that's important. And the bottom of the matrix is everything that's urgent. Then what I want you to do once you've put all those categories, and you don't have to overthink this, and I'm going to have a graphic of the matrix on the show notes, you are going to look at the important and urgent section, and those are the things you do first. So if they can be done like right now or within a week, you do them first. Then the things in the important but not urgent box are going to be scheduled. So you're going to schedule those within, like you decide, is it going to be scheduled within the week or next 2 weeks? The things that are urgent but not important, you are going to delegate. And I'm going to give you an example of something that I recently delegated that I just, for some odd reason, I thought I had to do it myself. But my daughter goes to swimming classes, and every day she's swimming, which is every Wednesday, we have to fill out this online form that says we haven't had anybody in the house with COVID, blah, 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 blah. And it's yes, no, yes, no. And then once everything is a no, you get a confirmation email. And since our nanny takes her to the swimming class, after I finish doing it, I have to fill out the form, do it, and then once I get the form, I get a confirmation email. I screenshot her the confirmation email that says Isabella is confirmed for class, whatever. For the longest time, because Wednesday at my job is we have Wednesday morning grand rounds, I would catch myself like just feeling frustrated because I would like forget to do it, or I'll do it and forget to send her the screenshot. And so when my husband and I were looking at things that don't necessarily fit in the schedule, he was like, oh, I can pick that task up. I can just do it. In the beginning, it was like I had to still like check with the nanny. Hey, did you get the form for my husband? And it worked out. But it was just something that is urgent because it has to be done every week, but it's not important that only I can do it. Versus if something is important and urgent, which requires my physical presence, then I want to do that first. I need to be able to show up and do that activity first. The third thing, obviously, is delegating. If you haven't listened to my podcast episode on outsourcing, this would be a great time for you to go back and listen to that, because there's not enough hours in the day for you to do everything that you don't need to be doing that you can delegate. Little things like even just like errands, like picking up your dry cleaning. It's urgent, but it's not important if you need your clothes at a certain time of day because somebody else could do it for you. And then if it's neither urgent nor important, just don't do it. I know that sounds ridiculous, but seriously, there's so many things that you put on your to-do list that you know you're never going to get to them, but you still keep putting them on your to-do list. Just dump them. Just get rid of them. You never need to do them. Or you can just shelf them for do it in 2022 or whatever. But just look at the matrix and then decide. Then what you're going to do next is, once you've decided what needs to go first and what needs to be scheduled, if you have thought about your one thing. So your most important work comes second. So your one thing can be, continuing education to get ahead, or if you're preparing to, submit your promotion package, what is your one thing that you need to do today? So it might be, I need to like go back, list down all the research that I've done in the last year and write it all down and put it in somewhere and have it ready for the chairman. So that is your most important work. So I want you to now go on your schedule and time block a time for that. Don't just say, I'm going to do it by XYZ, because you're not going to do it. And then you block your planning time. Your planning time means like, your time that you need maybe to coordinate carpools and coordinate pickups and all those stuff and coordinate your kids' activities, then you time block that. And it's so important to time block planning time, because It's so easy to underestimate how much time it takes to plan an activity. So, case in point, if you have plans to go to brunch with a friend, maybe you're gonna do your laundry and finish that and then, leave the house. Sometimes you're like, oh, it's just gonna be an hour, and then you're late because you just underestimated it. So, it's super, super important to prioritize your planning time because that is how you get in the meat of the work that you need to be doing. The other thing I wanted to share is, and I talked about this a little earlier, is the idea of saying no and being so intentional about the things you say no to, that you don't have to say yes to everything, and you also don't have to say no to everything. I remember when I read Shonda Rhimes' book, The Year of Yes, I thought, oh my gosh, I want to have a year of no. I'm just going to say no to everything, which sounded so silly. But I was coming from a place where I just would stretch myself so thin because I didn't say no enough. And what happened to me was that it just transitioned into a resentment phase because I had committed to doing all these things, but now I didn't want to do them. So then I was kind of resentful of myself, like past me for saying I was going to do it, and then like present me for not getting ahead of doing it. And then I was getting resentful of the people that I had told that I was going to do it. So it's so important to be clear about your no's because that's where the magic happens is if you can teach people that you're not going to say yes to everything and you're going to have safe and healthy boundaries for yourself and your activities, that is the key to like accomplishing what you need to accomplish. When you look at your to-do list today, I want you to think about how, even if you don't sit down and do this whole calendaring and time blocking process, maybe just sit down with your to-do list and put them on the Eisenhower Matrix. Like ask yourself what is urgent and important, what's urgent and not important, what's neither urgent, not important. Then you can kind of categorize these activities to fitting into your schedule. And that way you don't stretch yourself so thin that you're constantly just like on this hamster wheel. The last and final thing I want to talk about is intentionality with your time. Many times people will say, well, there's only 24 hours in a day. And that's true. That is a fact. That is a circumstance. It's indeed true. But some people think there are 24 hours in a day and I have enough room for rest, recreation, and work. And some people will think I have 24 hours in a day, I don't have enough time to sleep. Some other people will say, well, there's 24 hours in a day, but I don't have time to rest. How you choose to approach that time is totally 100% up to you. But you have to make the decision that if you are complaining or stating that you're out of time and you don't have time, then you have to make the decision to really, really take stock of what you're doing presently and really, really ask yourself if what you're doing or not doing is worth the time that you're not putting into it. Because example is mindless scrolling on social media. There's very little social media socializing happening. And I think in the times that we're living in right now, we are in such a deep state of wanting to connect with people. What I would offer to you is if you find yourself feeling that you're not connecting with people or you feel just a deep desire to connect, I would like to offer to you maybe call a friend or text a friend instead of going on social media or, have coffee with a friend. I feel like right now it's still a little iffy about people meeting up and doing stuff. But maybe if you're open to that, just like meet up with a friend and have a cup of coffee and then decide how you would like to connect more with people instead of constantly asking of yourself to spend time that you actually do not have. And that's the other thing too. In saying no, you can also start saying no to things that don't bring you joy, and you can basically, Marie Kondo your life and start being intentional about those things. The most important takeaway that I'd like you to take away from this episode is that when you're time blocking and calendaring, you need to block your time off first and your rest time first. So many people assume that you first do all the things and then you rest. I would like to offer you the idea of creating time on your schedule for rest and then doing all the other things. And also asking for help when you need help because there's only so many hours in a day. but there's also so many people that may be willing to help you if you would just be open-minded about not being in control of everything and being in charge. One thing about time and time management is that every day, if you get behind, quote unquote, because there's not really a real getting behind, but if you get behind, what happens with some people is that the sense of overwhelm becomes so intense that they're just not going to create, space to do last week's to-do list. And sometimes those things on last week's to-do list are very much connected to this week's to-do list. So I offer you the idea of dropping your to-do list, ditching it, and calendaring your time and really time blocking and really watching how you actually will come up with pockets of time. I promise you that if you are intentional about this and if you consistently time block and calendar your time, you will 100% create at least a minimum of 1 free hour a week, because you will not be chasing things, trying to do things that you don't need to be doing at specific times. The last little hack that I want to share with you is the Pomodoro Technique. I forget the exact how it came up, but it was this guy that basically observed that if he could cluster his time in little segments, he actually got a whole lot done. I like to cluster activities that are connected. So if it's like making phone calls, I write down all the phone calls that I need to make today, all the email follow-ups I need to do today, sort of things like interconnected activities on my calendaring time. And then what I like to do is use this Pomodoro technique. You just basically take a watch and you set a 25-minute timer. You turn off all your distractions, all your distractions. You turn on the 25-minute timer and you just like start banging the tasks over the 25-minute period. If you allow yourself to stay focused, you can actually get so much done in that 25 minutes than if you kept getting distracted for an hour. The last thing I really want to share with you is overwhelm is a feeling, but sometimes we state overwhelmed as if it's a circumstance and a fact of life. So if you're feeling overwhelmed and you're like, well, I'm just overwhelmed, that's just how it is. But it's really a feeling, and you have to really observe your thoughts on where that like comes up, because with it, and I digress. It's actually a thought. So the thought of overwhelm, it might be, you might feel like it's really factual for you, but it's a feeling that's created by a thought that you're overwhelmed. And if you take action or don't take action, the results are obviously different. If you're feeling overwhelmed by your to-do list, maybe you can call that to-do list and really see what's not working and what's working for you, and then challenge yourself. Instead of the constant overwhelm, challenge yourself with the intentionality of your time. There are so many strategies out there, but I honestly feel that this has worked best for me as a mom because, one, it doesn't require me to, assign so much time to doing tasks. It just allows me to just look at my calendar, look at the 24 hours in each day, take out my sleep time, take out the time that I have to be at work and my physical job, and then observe the other pockets of time that are there and be super, super, super intentional on how I use that time. But if I don't calendar those activities, it sometimes just seems like to be a lot of stuff, but it really shouldn't be. It's really an activity that's helped me a lot. And I truly wanted to share these with all of you because I think that, everybody's looking for quote unquote hack. And there really isn't a hack because the things need to be done. It's just being intentional on how you're going to use that time. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I know it was shorter than the usual episodes, but it was an introduction to this series. And next week, we'll be talking about more in detail about balance and routines and habits to set the stage for my masterclass that I will be hosting in a couple of weeks. Actually, it's going to start a week after this episode airs. So if you'd like to sign up, go to www.balanceanesthesiamom.com/masterclass. I will link that link to the show notes so you can easily access it. But I'm going to teach you the idea of carving balance in your motherhood and work and the mom work balance matrix, and give you some secrets to creating that life for yourself. Some of the things that I'm going to be sharing are actually not as obvious as most people want to think that they're right in front of you, but they just seem like elusive. And I want to offer to all of us that we are capable of doing that. So I hope you will join me on the masterclass. It's going to be really, really exciting. Once you get on the website, you'll be able to choose a time that works for you. I hope to see you there. It's going to be live, so I'm going to be there in person. I can't wait to see all of you, and I can't wait to talk to you. I hope this episode was helpful to you. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out on social or by emailing me, hello@anesthesiamom.com. And again, thank you so much for joining me on the Stethoscopes to Swaddles podcast, and see you next week. Bye, friend.